At my daughter's birthday banquet, the longevity lock in the brocade box had been swapped for a decapitated snake. While the women in the courtyard screamed in fright, my husband's white moonlight reddened her eyes and hugged the child as she apologized. The child doesn't understand. She didn't intentionally use a decapitated snake to curse the young lady with a short life. She suppressed the provocation in her eyes, waiting for me to fly into a rage and ruin my daughter's birthday banquet. But I merely gave a soft mm, and a servant promptly brought a stick down hard on the back of her knee. With a thud, she dropped to her knees at my feet, her forehead striking the ground. Blood poured out, and she looked utterly miserable. Yet I only lightly tapped the rim of my teacup, without even lifting my head. Drag her out and kill her. If a child doesn't understand, are the adults dead too? I may look kind, but my heart is cold, a living king of hell, as certified by the Empress Dowager herself. When I was 5, my hunter father was having an affair with widow Wang next door. When my mother caught them in bed, the two feared their adultery would be exposed and they would be drowned, so they simply decided to go all the way. One covered my mother's mouth so she couldn't make a sound, while the other viciously tightened a straw rope around her neck and strangled her to death. My father, debauched from drink, had beaten me so badly that I hid under the bed for an entire day. I saw with my own eyes as they strangled my mother, who was 8 months pregnant, and then hung her from the roof beam. Afterward, my father hypocritically made do and formed a new family with the widow and her daughter. My stepmother was overbearing, yet I sweetly called her mother. My stepsister was arrogant, and I fawned on her too, yielding in everything. Even to my vicious father, who drove me to the cowshed to make room, I eagerly learned his knife skills. I drew his bow and went up the mountain with him to hunt wild rabbits, and worked the fields planting crops, using the praise of like father, like daughter to win his favor. The villagers all said my mother had given birth to a useless, ungrateful wretch. Kindness that is good for nothing is weakness. A bodhisattva face that cannot protect itself is incompetence. Only I knew that behind that bodhisattva face was hidden a vajra blade that kills. Every blade I swung was for revenge, and every bow I drew bent was for the lives of villains. Then, when I was 10, my stepsister wanted to sell me to a local bully as a lowly concubine for the sake of a lavish dowry. I tightened my grip on the knife in my hand while answering her with flattery. Then I turned around and struck the back of her neck with the knife handle and sold her into the lowest and vilest brothel. By the time my stepmother found out, several days had already passed. Her eyes were red with hatred as she tried to kill me to avenge her daughter, but I suddenly drove a knife into her chest. She didn't die, and I didn't finish her off either. She had used a lot of force when she covered my mother's mouth. So I locked the door and made her cling to life for a single breath, crawling all over the floor like a dead dog and begging for help with all her strength. Knowing how dearly father loved this family of his, I was certain he would never spare me. So when he stepped through the gate late at night with a wild boar over his shoulder, I used the arrow he had taught me to shoot and pierced his throat with a single shot. After that, clutching the money jar, I set the whole courtyard ablaze with one fire. While the whole village went to fight the fire, I went to my mother's grave and kowtowed once. Then I turned and headed for the capital, selling myself to the Marquis's manor for 5 taels of silver. I became the chief maidservant by the side of the true-born young lady, who was not well liked. Not long afterward, she entered the palace in place of the fake heiress to attend upon the old emperor. Through 10 years of storms, she gave me fine clothes and rich food, and I protected her dignity and safety. When the fake heiress tried to ruin her chastity, I had the fake heiress caught in bed in adultery. When Consort Shen wanted to ruin her looks and steal the emperor's favor, I had Consort Shen's face stung into ruin, completely fallen out of favor. When the noble consort pushed her into the pond, plotting to take her life, I made sure the noble consort died beneath horses' hooves at the hunting grounds. Even when the emperor himself harbored evil intentions and wanted her to be buried with him after his death, I still moved before the imperial edict was issued, urging the adopted son under her care to force the emperor to death and seize power. From the true daughter of the Marquis's household, once obscure and unknown, to the Empress Dowager above all others, I wore the face of a bodhisattva while hiding a vajra blade, and stroke by stroke I fought and killed my way out alongside her. Until I was granted in marriage to Xie Jingrang, the Empress Dowager stir her teacup without even lifting her head. His family has declined, and only by the merit of supporting the founding of the new reign did he return to the ranks of the nobility. Having suffered hardship, he understands better how hard-won wealth and stability are, and so he will not slight you. Besides, the former crown prince of the previous dynasty caused his family to be destroyed and left him nearly dead on the streets begging. It was you, wearing that bodhisattva face and tilting a bamboo-jointed umbrella, who reached out a hand to him in his hour of peril. He remembers the kindness of help offered in the snow, so when Her Majesty wished to arrange a marriage for you, he was the first to step forward. Lastly, and most importantly, there is no one left in the CF family. If he betrays you, one stroke of the blade is all it takes, and the Marquis's household will be yours. Jingqiu, clawing your way through blood and carnage is too exhausting. Go enjoy some peaceful prosperity. I listened to the Empress Dowager and married Xie Jingrang. We lived in marital harmony, treated each other with respect, had both sons and daughters, and could be said to have had a fulfilled life. Those stable, uneventful days gradually dulled the edge of my Vajra blade, until Xie Jingrang made a trip south and brought back his White Moonlight and her son. White Moonlight's husband had died young, her mother-in-law was overbearing, and her sisters-in-law were arrogant. Mother and son could hardly take a step in that household. She blocked Xie Jingrang's fine horse, tearful, and invoked the favor her father had once received from his father, begging him to pull her out of her sea of misery and save her from suffering. Xie Jingrang had long since forged a heart of cold steel, impervious to blades and spears, from living on the edge of a knife. And yet, he felt pity for her, and using the title of Marquis of Yongning, he forced the Song family to give her a letter of divorce and brought the mother and son back to the capital. In his letters he spoke again and again of their difficult circumstances, repeatedly reminding me to be tolerant and magnanimous, to show understanding. I had seen every sort of human drama in the palace. Before I had done anything at all, he was already protecting that mother and son. His heart truly was biased. I knew it then. The blade that had gathered dust was about to leave its sheath. Sure enough, on the day that mother and son entered the residence, when she led her 5-year-old child to bow to me, just as her waist bent 3 parts, the jade hanging from the child's neck slipped out from inside his clothes in full view of everyone. The jade swayed in the light, and the lively courtyard fell deathly silent in an instant. When the Xie family was trampled into the mud by the former crown prince of the previous dynasty, Xie Jingrang had nothing left. The only thing that remained by his side was this heirloom twin dragon jade. He treasured it like his life. If anyone else so much as touched it, he would fly into a rage. When our daughter was born, he could not bear to give it to her. When our son was born, he said to wait until he came of age. But after all that waiting, it ended up around White Moonlight's child's neck. The aunt from a collateral branch of the Xie family turned cold-faced. How could the Xie family's ancestral jade be hanging around an outsider's neck? Lin Qingru's hand trembled as she held the child's. Her eyes reddened as she looked at me, her voice panicked. "Madam, please do not be angry." The journey was rough, and the child felt terribly unwell, crying and fussing without stop. The Marquis felt sorry for him, so he used the jade pendant at his waist to soothe him. "The child is ignorant and forgot to return it. I'll take it off right away." Flustered, she reached to tug at the cord holding the jade, and the soft string bit into her son Song Chang'an's delicate neck. In pain, he suddenly shoved Lin Qingru's hand away and cried out tearfully, "Daddy gave it to me. He said if Chang'an likes it, I can just keep it and play with it." Why is mother trying to snatch Chang'an's things? His fingertip pointed at me, viciously. Was it this wicked woman who forced you? She stole my daddy, and now she wants to bully my mother too. She's a wicked woman. Everyone in the courtyard gasped in shock and turned their eyes to my face. Wearing the Xie family's ancestral jade, and having a child who calls Xie Jingrang daddy. The moment she entered the capital, she used my dignity as the sole of her shoe. Xie Jingrang only held the child and soothed him, turning a deaf ear to all the filthy insults hurled at me. My daughter glanced at me, then tilted her head and shouted innocently, "You're already 5 years old, and you can't even recognize your own father. How stupid. Clinging to someone else's father at random. Aren't you afraid people will call you a shameless bastard?" Lin Qingru's eyelashes trembled. Xie Jingrang's rebuke had already left his mouth. "How dare you? Who taught you to be so harsh and mean, with no sense of propriety or decorum? Go kneel in the ancestral hall and copy the family precepts."
Clang.
The lid of my teacup fell against the bowl with a sharp sound, smashing apart the words he had not yet spoken. Meeting my icy gaze, his expression changed belatedly, and he lowered his voice and said, "It's only a form of address. Is that really worth getting angry over? The child has no father and is often bullied, crying and fussing the whole way. I'm a marquis, after all. I couldn't just stand by and ignore the suffering of my benefactor's child." I curled my lips into a smile without even lifting my eyelids. "So your lordship nobly sacrificed yourself for others, letting him call you daddy, and brought upon your own son and daughter the misery of being mocked by others?" Xie Jingrong's righteous confidence froze on the spot. "Your lordship has been away from the capital so long that you've forgotten where your home is and who your family really is." I lifted my eyelids and looked at him coldly. "When others pointed at my nose and called me a wicked woman, your lordship seemed to have been struck mute by poison. Yet you are quite good at not stooping to a child's level. But when my daughter spoke up for me with a few retorts, you were suddenly able to produce rules and upbringing to punish her. This double standard of yours, is it the custom and practice in Ningzhou? Tell me, exactly which part of the etiquette and rules that Her Majesty the Empress Dowager personally taught Aging displeases your lordship so much that you would publicly impose family punishment?" Xie Jingrong's breath caught. "You know very well that's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Xie Jingrong was left speechless. He did not dare say that. Now that Her Majesty the Empress Dowager had entered the Buddhist hall, he thought my backing was gone and he could knead and shape me as he pleased. Seeing this, Lin Qingru raised her hand and slapped Song Chang'an on the back. "Look at you shouting nonsense, causing so much trouble for your lordship. Why don't you hurry and kneel to apologize to madam?" Song Chang'an cried out in pain and wailed, "Daddy said a man's knees are worth gold. I'm not kneeling to a wicked woman. I don't want to stay in the capital anymore. I want to go back to Ningzhou. I want to go back to Ningzhou." The child cried and made a fuss again. Lin Qingru clutched her handkerchief, suppressing a sob as she quietly wept. "Your lordship, the child is ignorant and has upset madam. I should take him and leave." Xie Jingrong's brows furrowed inch by inch. The Lin family has done the Marquis's household a favor. It has not been easy for Qingru to raise a child alone. "Jingqiu, don't make things difficult for her." I gently set my teacup down on the table. "Your lordship, do tell me, how have I made things difficult for her?" "Miss Lin, you should tell us as well, so everyone in the household can judge fairly who exactly is making things difficult for whom." Lin Qingru's face turned pale, and I sternly asked, "Was it I who snatched your family heirloom jade? Or was it my child who called your husband daddy? Or perhaps I used a child as a shield in front of others and humiliated you?" Her body swayed, and I let out a cold sneer. "Miss Lin, you and your lordship grew up together. Don't tell me you don't recognize the Xie family's ancestral jade, and don't tell me you don't understand the rules of the capital." "Jingqiu." Xie Jingrong spoke up to stop me. Aging frowned, pressing down the chill at the corners of her lips, and deliberately laughed loudly. "My mother is a famously virtuous and capable mistress of the household in the capital. She would never bully some uncultured little wild child who has no father and might as well have no mother either." When mother received father's letter, she had the best courtyard prepared early, with a whole room full of brand new daily necessities. She even feared that the silver for everyday expenses might wound certain people's fragile pride, so it was quietly left on the dressing table, silently protecting their affected dignity. With such generosity and thoughtfulness, how can this be called making things difficult for someone? If any household mistress is so magnanimous in making things difficult for people, then let her make things difficult for me all she likes. She walked up to Song Chang'an, her fingertip tapping that piece of jade. "Besides, this jade belongs to the sole legitimate eldest son of the Xie family and should have belonged to my younger brother. Taking back what is one's own is not called making things difficult for someone. Stubbornly clinging to it and refusing to return it, that is what is unbecoming." When Aunt Lin from the Lin family abandoned her engagement and married far away in Ningzhou for many years while the Marquis's household was in trouble, could it be that she left even her sense of propriety behind in the capital? Then you'd better bend down and look for it carefully. If you can't pick your propriety back up, you won't be able to sustain a lifetime of wealth and privilege by relying on my father's charity and affection alone. Everyone present understood perfectly well, each one covering their mouth with a handkerchief and snickering. It was as if Lin Qingru had been slapped across the face. Her expression shifted from green to white. I wasn't refusing to return it, That's good then. Asian cut her off. If you won't take it, I will. As soon as the words fell, she suddenly raised her hand and yanked the jade from Song Chang'en's neck. Song Chang'en's mouth drooped in pain, and just as he was about to cry out, Asian shouted sternly, "Hold it back." Song Chang'en was so startled that the cry froze on his face. His mouth twitched, but in the end he did not cry. Xie Jingrang frowned tightly. Lin Qingru was dumbfounded. The corners of my lips curved up in satisfaction. As if presenting a treasure, Asian then carried the jade pendant to her little brother, who was just over 2 years old. Though it is meant to be passed on to you, you're too young. Things you can't keep are easily snatched away. Shall elder sister keep it safe for you? Xiaoyu blinked his big eyes and nodded. Asian beamed. Good, so you agree. She sat back down beside me and said pointedly, I've learned how to slap faces from the palace nannies. It hurts a lot when I hit people, so don't be so ungrateful as to force me to slap him to death. She bit down especially hard on the last 3 words. Frightened, Song Chang'en suddenly raised both hands and clapped them tightly over his pouting mouth. Asian looked at Lin Qingru, who was biting her thin lips hard, her voice cold and hard again. My mother may have the face of a bodhisattva and a soft heart, but she is not some weak woman to be bullied. A blade forged in the palace walls. Whoever touches it dies. Xie Jingrang's face turned livid from the blow of those words. Afterward, he sought shelter for the white moonlight and her son, softening his attitude to coax me. But every time he had just arrived at my courtyard, Song Chang'en would inevitably stop him at my door at just the right moment. Either he would be holding up characters he did not recognize, or saying he had a headache or fever and felt unwell, or even that he wanted crab roe pastries from Hongyan Tower, or to go to the moat to watch the pleasure boats. Every single time, Xie Jingrang would surely be taken away by that mother and son. After it happened enough times, when he came to my courtyard again, he found the main gate tightly shut and the maids as deaf as if they had no ears. No matter what he did, he could not get that door open. Xie Jing laughed at him. Since you always get dragged away before you even make it through the door, you might as well go straight to keep that pitiful mother and son company and fully display a father's boundless love and righteousness. Why go to the trouble of insisting on knocking open this tightly closed door to mother's room? After all, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager devotes herself wholeheartedly to Buddhist worship, does not concern herself with worldly affairs, and cannot control father's hypocrisy and his siding with outsiders. Xie Jingrang stiffened all over. Just as he was about to speak in reprimand, his eyes met mine beneath the corridor. If the Marquis has come to reprimand my daughter, then from now on, you need not come to this courtyard again. His lips trembled, and he changed his expression. Tomorrow there will be horse racing in the outskirts of the capital. I want to take you and Aijing to watch. I had meant to refuse, but a glint flashed in Aijing's eyes, and he agreed at once. I'm going. I want to pick the finest steed. Song Chang'en, who had been cowering in the corner, darted back to the courtyard in a flash. Aijing saw it and said to me slyly, I picked the fiercest red hair. It has a stubborn temperament and won't tolerate strangers. Doesn't he love snatching things? This time, I'll let them suffer the consequences and personally deliver it right to their door. I suddenly understood and couldn't help letting out a snicker. Just as expected of someone taught by the Empress Dowager, a head full of crafty tricks. The next day at the racecourse, the ladies were all seated in the viewing stands, waiting for their sons and daughters' fine horses to appear. Before long, Xie Jingrang led out a splendid horse, carrying Aijing, and entered the field in imposing style. Then Song Chang'en suddenly rushed out from who knew where, crying as he hugged Xie Jingrang's leg, Daddy, Chang'en has never ridden a horse before. Chang'en wants to ride too. Hearing this, the expressions of the nobles present all changed. Lin Qingru hurried after him. Chang'en, don't make trouble. The Marquis has already shown you kindness. Living in fine clothes and rich food is already better than most people. How dare you compare yourself to the young lady again? She suppressed a sob, and her voice weakened. It's because mother is useless and can't teach you to ride. It's all because you have no father and deserve to be looked down on all your life. If you keep making a fuss, even the Marquis won't want you anymore. Xie Jingrang froze, and his tone softened to the utmost. Why say such things to a child? It's only riding a horse. I can teach him. Lin Qingru pressed her handkerchief down and quietly glanced at Xie Jing. Wouldn't that be too difficult? Xie Jingrang turned around. Asian. Red hair is fierce and wary of strangers. I can't yield him. Xiejing cut him off. Xie Jingrong's face darkened. You already have everything. It's only one horse race. What's wrong with letting him have this one? A child of the Marquis's household shouldn't be so selfish. Xie Zheng threw down the riding crop and swung down from the horse. In a voice everyone could hear, he sneered coldly. I really envy him. Although his father is dead, he's never lacked a father's love. Unlike me, my father is alive, yet it's almost the same as if he weren't. Xie Jingrong's expression changed drastically, and he hurried after Xie Zheng. That mother and son only have each other. Life is very hard for them. Was it easy for my mother then? Xie Zheng laughed coldly. The moment you left, you were gone for 3 years. The entire Marquis's household, and we brother and sister, all fell onto her shoulders alone. And after we finally waited for your return, you brought back these 2 filthy things that stab her straight in the heart. Her intentions are written all over her face. Everyone in the capital has eyes. You're the only one pretending to be blind. Don't come pretending to dote on us anymore. It's disgusting. Xie Zheng strode toward my viewing stand. Xie Jingrang had only just taken a few steps after him when Lin Qingru, barely concealing her satisfaction, suddenly helped Song Chang'an onto the horse. Marquis, the horse is moving. She deliberately found an excuse to hypocritically stop Xie Jingrang, but unexpectedly, the horse suddenly seemed to go mad, neighing as it charged out of the wooden enclosure. Song Chang'an cried out in panic. Mother, save me. Lin Qingru screamed herself hoarse. Brother Jingrang, save Chang'an. Xie Jingrang shot forward like an arrow loosed from the bow and rushed into the racecourse. At a whistle from the groom, the fine horse reined in, but the child was flung out hard. With quick eyes and quick hands, Xie Jingrang lunged over and caught Song Chang'an, who had been thrown from the fierce horse, but his own arm was cut by the wooden rail. Song Chang'an only scraped a bit of skin off his face and was badly frightened, shrinking into Xie Jingrang's arms and crying desperately. Xie Jingrang was heartsick with concern, and when he looked at Red Hair, his eyes were as cold as a deep pool. Dispose of this damned horse for me at once. Who dares? Xie Zheng stood in front of the horse, snatching someone else's property, and then wanting to destroy it once it's no longer useful. What kind of logic is that? It injured someone. Then that was retribution for forcibly taking someone else's property. How dare you? You're the one being outrageous. I spoke up. The Empress Dowager bestowed Chitu upon Asian. To seize it for use is overstepping one's bounds. Could it be that the Marquis intends to bully a child, and in doing so slight imperial authority? Xie Jingrong's back stiffened. I asked, word by word. Without a token from a noble family, how did that mother and son get into the racecourse? The Marquis may have no shame, but we still do. Lin Qingru's pupils suddenly contracted. The guard my people had dragged over, afraid of being held accountable, hurriedly begged forgiveness. She was carrying the Marquis's waist token and claimed to be a female family member of the Marquis's household. We didn't dare truly stop her. As soon as those words fell, the whole hall erupted in hushed whispers. A female family member of the Marquis's household? With an imperial bestowal of marriage, daring to keep a mistress outside and have a child is deceiving the sovereign. Charging onto the racecourse to steal a horse. Who couldn't see this was the cheap concubine's trick of trying to disgust the lawful wife. As expected, the blind ones are all heartless men. The fact that the child wasn't thrown to death only means Chitu was in a good mood today. All this shouting about killing, someone unaware might think that child was born of an animal. If one cannot put one's own house in order, how can one govern outside it? In my view, this Marquis of Yongning finds his days too peaceful. Xie Jingrang had lost all dignity, his fists clenched tight, veins bulging. I acted as if I saw nothing, my lips drawn taut. Apologize. Xie Jingrang suddenly looked at me. Apologize? You stole Asiang's fine horse, frightened Chitu, ruined the refined enjoyment of all the ladies and young misses, and disgusted me, you people. My fingers swept over the 3 of them huddled together like a family. Apologize. How could I, as her mother, fail to thoroughly prepare a whetstone for my daughter to use? So many noble ladies here have all received the Empress Dowager's favor. One after another, they shouted along with me, shameless thing. Back then, afraid the Marquis's household would fall and implicate you, you ran faster than anyone after breaking off the engagement. and now you have the nerve to stick yourself back on, yet you're nothing but a bed-warming thing beneath even a lowly concubine. For a horse selection gathering, every one of us carved out time and prepared again and again, only to be disgusted to this extent by a pair of filthy creatures. You've even led the well-bred, sensible good children of the capital astray. Bah! If you don't apologize today, we will go before His Majesty today and seek justice. The princess stepped out from behind the crowd, idly fanning herself with a folding fan. The marquise certainly puts on airs. Must this palace personally go make a trip before imperial brother? Xie Jingrang was battered by the relentless pressure until his face turned white, then green. He suppressed his hatred and said hoarsely, "Today, it was my failure to handle my family affairs properly that disturbed the refined enjoyment of all you ladies. Here, I offer my apologies to you all." Xie Jingrang rose with Song Chang'an in his arms. Xie Zheng shouted, "What about them?" Xie Jingrang's expression darkened. Xie Zheng then said, "Your blind indulgence and protection are certainly wrong, but they used the horse race prepared by Her Highness the Princess as a ploy to vie for favor. Shouldn't they give an explanation?" The princess leaned back in her chair and waited leisurely for the outcome. Lin Qingru had utterly lost face. Biting her pale lip, she opened her mouth in shame and indignation. "I was muddle-headed. I beg your highness and all the ladies to forgive my offense." In this way, she had admitted to scheming in public and vying for favor. That night, after Xie Jingrang had a stack of memorials thrown in his face by His Majesty, he entered my study. He explained to me, "Jingxiu, believe me, I didn't do today's matter on purpose. I was going over the account books and didn't even lift my head, using power to oppress others and forcing the Song family to issue a divorce letter. You didn't do that on purpose. Showing favoritism and bending the rules, using official rank and title to exchange for Song Chang'an status as a free person. You didn't do that on purpose. Trampling on my dignity and bringing them to live in the Marquis' household. You didn't do that on purpose." Her naked slap landed across the faces of the three of us, mother and children, and you turned a blind eye, not on purpose. Even today, when you've made Asia disheartened and turned the Marquis' estate into a laughingstock, you still say you didn't do it on purpose. I closed the ledger and looked up at him. "May I ask, my Lord Marquis, what does count as intentional? Helping your childhood sweetheart make things difficult for me? If so, shall I give up the main courtyard and let her become the mistress of this Marquis' estate?" Xie Jingrang's pupils trembled as he had just taken a step forward. Clang! The crisp sound of cups and saucers shattering came from outside the door. Lin Qingru gripped an empty tray, tears falling. "It's all my fault. I couldn't bear Chang'an's crying and fussing, so I secretly took the Marquis' token and went to the racecourse. If Madame wishes to blame someone, blame me. Please don't let this create a rift with the Marquis. I never meant to compete with Madame for anything. I only wanted Chang'an to see the fine horses in the capital. If I truly caused Madame distress, then I will. Then move out." I cut her off. "I bought a courtyard for you on West Street. Move there, and neither of us will be put in a difficult position, and it will also be better for the Marquis' reputation and future. After all, it makes no sense to help outsiders while failing to keep one's own household in order." Lin Qingru's tears froze on her face. Timidly, she cast a frightened and helpless look at Xie Jingrang. Xie Jingrang's brows were tightly furrowed because tucked inside my ledger was a letter sent by the Empress Dowager. A corner of the tribute paper was showing. He saw it. So he didn't dare raise his head, and his voice grew softer and softer. "The 6th day of next month is an auspicious day for moving house." Lin Qingru swayed. "You want to drive me away? Brother Jingrang, have you forgotten what you said to me?" "Enough." Xie Jingrang cut her off, his face showing reluctance. "On West Street, my Marquis' estate will still protect the safety of you and your son." Lin Qingru looked as if she might collapse, biting her lip as the maid helped her unwillingly out of the study. Xie Jingrang looked at me coldly. "So, are you satisfied now? You care too much about rules and appearances. In dealing with people, you are truly cold and heartless." The long shadow of the flying eaves was cast across Xie Jingrang's neck, like the life-snatching hook in the hands of the ox-head and horse-face wardens. I lowered my eyes. The rules belong to everyone, but personal feelings belong to the Marquis alone. I know very well which matters more. I twirled the exposed corner of the tribute paper and gently rubbed it. There are only 10 days until the 6th of next month. Tell your darling not to keep administering these heart-piercing insinuations in front of me.
I don't buy that act.
But I can make the mother and son carry themselves out of the Marquis's estate sideways. Unfortunately, none of them took my warning to heart. 3 days later, while the princess and I were admiring flowers in the garden, Song Chang'an suddenly fell into the fish pond by the side. Lin Qingru held the incessantly wailing child, and when Xie Jingrang came hurrying over, she dropped to her knees before me with a thud. 1,000 faults, 10,000 faults, they are all mine. I can move Tin in today and stay there for a while. I'll kneel to madam. I'll kowtow to madam. I beg you, madam, please be merciful and spare Chang'an. Song Chang'an also cried out, Mother, I'm so scared. Qingji pushed me into the water. I almost drowned. I'm so scared. They knelt before me, but their eyes kept darting toward the princess behind me. Xie Jingrang's face darkened. Drag that lowly maid out and interrogate her under harsh torture. The steward went and then returned, cold sweat of tension rolling down his forehead. Qingji drank poison and died. How could it have happened so quickly? She had only just pushed someone, and then the poison took effect the next moment? Lin Qingru cast me a panicked glance. Her voice weakened. Could it be that the steward is deliberately shielding one of his own? The steward sucked in a cold breath and pulled out a medicine bottle. It was Zhen poison, fatal with a single swallow. Lin Qingru gave a startled cry of surprise. She covered her mouth and cried out, Zhen poison that only exists in the palace. How could a maid have it? As soon as those words fell, the princess looked at me with interest. It seems the county lady won't be able to talk her way out of this today. After all, I came from the depths of the palace. By the Empress Dowager's side, my hands have been stained with blood. Who knows how many people I have rewarded with Zhen poison. Xie Jingrang's scrutiny fell on me. Pei Jingqiu, where are your manners? I raised my eyes and met his gaze. Marquis, are you putting both Chang'an's fall into the water and Qingji's death on my head? Xie Jingrang's thin lips parted, but when Song Chang'an suddenly let out a louder wail, they tightened again into a cold, hard line. A human life is no trifling matter. There must be an explanation. I saw it clearly. Lin Qingru gave Song Chang'an a vicious pinch. So I spoke. Someone report this to the authorities.
No.
Lin Qingru's voice was shrill. Realizing she had lost her composure, she tightened her hold on the child in her arms and lowered her voice. Rumors and slander have already driven us mother and son to the brink. If this is taken to the authorities, how will we have any face left to remain in the capital? It was only a fall into the water, and the maid is already dead. We are of humble standing and cannot afford to pursue the matter. Holding Song Chang'an, her body trembled uncontrollably. Helpless and pitiful, the maid had neither grievance nor grudge against Qingru, so why would she harm her child? Xie Jingrang questioned me like he was interrogating a criminal. She was a rough servant girl from your courtyard. What else do you have to say for yourself? The princess sat back down in the grand armchair the servants had carried over and held her teacup without even raising her head. First deal with the family matter. The flower viewing can wait. Only then did I lift my eyelids and look at Li Qingru. Miss Lin, do you mean that I incited Qingji to push your son into the water? Lin Qingru lowered her head. I didn't mean that. Madam said it herself. Ajing, who had just arrived, let out a laugh. You didn't say it outright, but you've already stabbed my mother with your words. If my mother wanted to kill someone, would she use a rough servant girl? What's the point of pushing him into the fish pond? Toss him into the dry well in the back courtyard, and before the stench of decay set in, it would all be done without a trace. Father, don't tell me you think the 2 hidden guards and the sabers bestowed on Mother by the Empress Dowager are made of mud. Xie Jingrang froze. I, who fought my way out of the bloody storms of the inner palace at the Empress Dowager's side, would not make such a low-level mistake that others could seize on so easily. His voice lowered a little. If crafty servants in the residence use their position to bully others, then it is a failure in employing people. Jingqiu, the fault is also yours. Ajing stepped forward. A failure in employing people? My mother won't take the blame for that. Her finger suddenly pointed at Song Chang'an's forehead. If you don't want Qingji to turn into a ghost and come strangle you in the middle of the night, then answer whatever I ask. Song Chang'an trembled in fright and shrank into Lin Qingru's arms. Mother, I'm scared. Lin Qingru hid him in her arms, her tone urgent. He's just a child. He can't stand being frightened. I already said it's nothing serious. Must you force Chang'an to death? If even the victim is to be turned into the guilty party, then I will do as Madam wishes and take Chang'an out of the Marquis's residence at once.
Good.
Zheng answered sharply. You may move out of the Marquis's residence, but only straight into the government office. Zheng pressed forward step by step. What you call, nothing serious has damaged my mother's good name. Disregarding human life is a grave crime, and when heiress poison is involved, the implications are even wider. If the inner court won't investigate, then the authorities will. Being sent to the Ministry of Justice for a round of questioning won't be as simple as my asking a few questions. The princess nodded. Zheng was brought up by the Empress Dowager. Since this concerns County Lady Jingqiu, go ahead and investigate as you see fit. I will preside here for you, so no one will dare question the fairness of it. That single sentence struck everyone speechless. Lin Qingru gave Song Chang'an a long look, then slowly loosened her hold. The corner of Zheng's mouth lifted, and she called out in a deep voice. Point it out for me. Where were you standing? How did Qingji push you? And did she use her left hand or her right? Where exactly did she push you? Did you fall backward or plunge face first into the water? Where did you land? And where was your mother standing when you fell in?
Miss.
Shut up. Zheng sharply cut off Lin Qingru's interruption. When questions are asked in court, do you also interrupt this wildly and at will? As a mother, failing to protect your child is already a dereliction of duty. As a guest, if you do not understand that a guest should follow the host's lead, then you lack manners and upbringing. As the victim's family, if you refuse to cooperate with questioning and finding the truth, then you are guilty and hiding the truth. Are you seeking justice and the truth, or the outcome of wronging my mother to death? Lin Qingru's face flushed red. Zheng turned back. Song Chang'an, if you dare lie, I'll tear out your tongue. Song Chang'an was utterly flustered, clutching his sleeve, not even daring to cry. Measured in advance and retreat, calm in the face of danger, logical and well-grounded. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager had indeed taught Zheng extremely well. The tactics forged in the harem were more than enough to deal with a mother and son who relied on a man for protection. I picked up the tea a servant had brought and leisurely blew on it. Song Chang'an stammered, his words full of panic. She pushed my shoulder with her right hand. I fell into the water. Qingji was standing here. I was here. Liar. Zheng's gaze turned cold as she shouted. Qingji sprained her right wrist yesterday. The record of the medicine is on file. Her right hand couldn't have pushed you. She was only half a step away from you, and your mother was right beside you. Was she blind or stupid, to be so completely unguardless as to let her reach out to you? Men, tear out his tongue. Zheng. Lord Marquis. The princess stopped Xie Jingrong's restless movement with a sharp rebuke. You don't understand propriety either? Xie Jingrong's steps halted on the spot. Zheng took the scissors handed over by a servant, smiling viciously. Song Chang'an broke down. I didn't. It was Qingji who pushed me. Your mother told Qingji to push me. She's a cheap woman. She? Chang'an. Lin Qingru's face went pale, and she rushed like mad to cover Song Chang'an's mouth. But the hand she stretched out had only just brushed Zheng's skirt.
Bang!
An imperial guard suddenly kicked her in the lower abdomen, sending her flying several zhang away. She slammed hard into the osmanthus tree, then fell to the ground with a thud. She vomited a mouthful of blood, struggled to prop herself up again, and finally slumped sideways and fainted. Xie Jingrong's expression changed drastically, and he had just taken one step forward. With a swish, Zheng drew a guard's blade, its edge brushing past Xie Jingrong's robe hem. She severed the wrist-thick osmanthus tree behind him. This daughter learned the blade from the imperial guards. If she accidentally injured her father, that would be a grave offense. Xie Jingrong flew into a rage. Raising a blade against your father, you are rebellious and unfilial. I'll teach you right now the filial piety and propriety of being someone's child. His hand had just lifted. Then he heard the princess sneer. As expected of Her Majesty the Empress Dowager's dragon-slaying blade, it is indeed sharp. Holding it gives one the convenience of executing first and reporting later. Killing some blind fool is very convenient for Zheng. Xie Jingrong's breathing hitched, and the slap that was about to land on Zheng's face slowly withdrew, clenching into a powerless fist. In the next instant, Zheng's eyes turned sharp and she grabbed Song Chang'an by the collar. Even your father can't protect you now, so you can only wait for death. As her words fell, with a splash, Song Chang'an was shoved hard into the pond. Xie Jingrong was horrified. Zheng turned around coldly, her fierce gaze landing on Xie Jingrong's face. The hidden guard's blade was drawn with a cold ring and pressed heavily against Xie Jingrong's neck. By the Empress Dowager's decree, we will protect the young lady's safety with our lives. Lord Marquis, think carefully before you act. Patricide is a grave crime. Zheng, stop fooling around. Xie Jingrong's fists were trembling. But Zheng's cold smile slowly faded away. Since the filthy reputation has fallen on me, I'll see it through to the end. Only if he drowns in the pond will it not be in vain that my mother bore this filthy name. Want to use patricide to pressure me? First, you have to count as a father. But from beginning to end, have you ever defended mother even once? Xie Jingrong's expression froze, and he turned to look at me and the princess. We turned a blind eye and only talked about the tea in our hands. The princess said, "Good tea." I laughed softly. It was prepared long ago. One copy for your highness, one for her highness, and one for his majesty as well. Then, with pointed meaning, I said word by word, of the bond forged along the way, after all the comings and goings, in the end only a few of us remain. Drinking the new tea and thinking of old ties, I imagine His Majesty is pleased as well. His Majesty seized power and forced the Empress Dowager to withdraw. When he elevated the newly favored and indulged Xie Jingrong in striking at me and the Empress Dowager's dignity again and again, he also forgot our old kindness. That year, the former crown prince staged a palace coup and cornered His Majesty and the Empress Dowager in a deserted temple, intent on wiping them out. It was I who put on a cloak, mounted his horse, and risked my life to lure away the pursuers. I bought them time to find a hidden passage and escape with their lives. Later, the title bestowed on me as a commandery princess and the imperial marriage decree both stemmed from the blood that covered me that day. His Majesty may have forgotten, but the court officials and the common people still remember. When that debt of gratitude was laid before the emperor, the only one to be cast aside was Xie Jingrong. He knew it clearly. Asian was bitterly disappointed. When mother was wronged, father would only hold mother to account. But when others were wronged, he would fly into a rage to protect them. So a person's soft spot need not be his own wife and daughter after all. When mother was 3 months pregnant, you went south. When she struggled through childbirth, you were mediating for this mother and son with the Song family and did not return to the capital. Later, you were busy. You could not get away. You had your unavoidable reasons. Time and again and again, you abandoned us. Fortunately, mother never placed everything on you. She had no expectations, and neither was she heartbroken. It's just that with such a father and such a husband, both mother and I are deeply sorrowful. Xie Jingrong's expression tightened and trembled. Asian snatched the staff from the guard and pressed it hard against Song Chang'en's head. "You liar, I'll make you die in the water." The pressure made Song Chang'en ache and panic. With a chill in her eyes, Asian raised the staff at Song Chang'en's head. Song Chang'en was horrified. Like a duck, he suddenly plunged headfirst underwater. Like a slippery fish, he turned and swam a long way off in an instant. Xie Jingrong was dumbfounded. I set down my teacup. Asian is truly impressive. With just one staff, she brought out Chang'en's talent for swimming. As soon as I finished speaking, Song Chang'en surfaced on the opposite side of the pool. Just as he was about to climb ashore, he was met again by Asian's smiling face. "Not bad. You're quite good at holding your breath, too." Her smile faded inch by inch, and the scabbard came down onto Song Chang'en's shoulder. "You lied. Water can't drown you, and Qingji wants a liar like you to pay with your life. You must die, and your mother shouldn't think she'll live either." Song Chang'en panicked and called out to his mother in a tearful voice, "Mother, save me. I don't want to die." When he saw his mother with blood all over her head, collapsed limply on the ground in a miserable state, he could not help but burst into tears. "Don't kill me. I didn't do it on purpose." It was mother who said, "As long as I jumped into the water and insisted Qingji pushed me, the bad woman would fall out of father's favor. Then father wouldn't drive me away. Sob, sob, sob. Please don't kill me." Asian pressed the scabbard down on top of his head. "If you want to live, answer the question. Why did Qingji push you?" Song Chang'en choked on a mouthful of water, his face turned pale, and he bawled. "Mother told me to stuff the jeweled hairpin and the banknotes under her pillow. If she didn't push me into the water, the whole family would be beaten to death with clubs. I didn't kill her. That bottle was brought by mother from the Song family. It was placed on the stone table, and Qingji took it herself, forcing an honest woman into prostitution, slandering me in public, and using death to erase the evidence, so as to smear me all over with disgrace. Lin Qingru looked gentle and kind, but her heart was vicious indeed. That pitiful, helpless child was full of nothing but lies and malice. Xie Jingrong's face darkened like a frigid pool. Ajing looked at him with great interest. When someone brings trouble into the inner quarters, this household becomes hard to govern. The fault does not lie in employing the wrong people, but in someone failing to see people's true hearts. When father blamed mother, did he truly understand the truth of the matter? Or was he simply choosing the person most suited to take the blame so he could smooth things over? Xie Jingring lowered his head after being struck by a cold slap. A child's words cannot be taken seriously. Ajing let out a breath. I knew it long ago. There has never been justice for my mother and me in your mouth. Fortunately, Qingji was saved by mother. Qingji stepped out from behind the crowd and dropped to her knees with a thud. I did not steal anything. It was Miss Lin who framed me. She forced me to push young Master Chang'an into the water, and deliberately left the poisoned wine on the stone table, hoping that I, afraid of implicating my family, would take my own life to atone. If Madame had not seen through me the day before when I was so terrified and uneasy that I dropped a teacup, I would have died today, without even a place to be buried. Xie Jingring stared at me blankly. You knew? I nodded. I knew. Ajing knew. Your Highness knew, and all the servants in the courtyard knew. Because Qingji is timid. She would cry even after stepping on an ant. She could never kill anyone. Only you, because your heart was biased, became blind in both sight and judgment, willing to splash dirty water onto me for her sake. Xie Jingrang was left utterly speechless. Ajing waved a hand, coldness pressing down on his expression, and Song Chang'an was hauled ashore. This time, he truly shrank into a ball, his face deathly pale, trembling desperately for his life, even biting his lip to hold back his crying. The shadow guard sheathed his blade, and Ajing smiled with feigned harmlessness, slandering the county princess, driving Qingji to death, framing and falsely accusing others. Father, what do you think should be done? Xie Jingrong's throat bobbed. Jingqiu. This time she was in the wrong. What happened back then was beyond her control, and these past years, because of her past with me, she has had a very hard life in the Song family. Even if she was at fault, it was only because she was trying to survive. Ajing let out a snort of laughter. Her life was hard, so my mother deserved to suffer? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, father? She had it hard raising a child, so she sought compensation by hurting my mother and me? Xie Jingrong's tone turned stern. My hand came to rest on the teacup. He let out a breath and suppressed his anger. You're still a child. You should not discuss the rights and wrongs of adults. I gave an "oh, then I'll discuss it." By the law, slandering a county princess warrants 20 strokes of the rod. As for framing and scheming against a maid's life, just report it to the authorities. Jingqiu. Xie Jingrong's eyes reddened. How have you become so overbearing? The princess at the side let out a sneer. Is she overbearing? Back then, when she faced off against the Eastern Palace alone and publicly exposed the Xie family's wrongful case to clear your entire household's name, why didn't you call her overbearing then? When she carried an umbrella and swept away a whole street of deadster to protect your life, why didn't you call her overbearing then? When she ruled the rear household with an iron hand, dealt with the noble families with a cold face, and secured the Xie family's foundation and dignity, why did you never once say she was overbearing? For a moment, the only sound in the courtyard was Song Chang'an's low sobbing. The princess withdrew her gaze. When the Marquis and the Xie family hid behind Jingqiu and benefited from it, her ruthlessness and vengefulness were the means by which she established herself in the world. But when she stood against the Marquis's selfish partiality and protection of his own, then even when she spoke only of rules and law, it became overbearing and ruthless. Xie Jingring, is it that she changed, or that your heart changed? The princess's words were like a rolling blade, grinding across Xie Jingrong's shamelessness. They stabbed him until his face turned green, and he did not dare meet my eyes. He lowered his voice. She was simply unwilling to leave the Marquis's estate. Chang'an needs a home. She was unwilling to leave the Marquis's estate, so I, the lawful mistress of this household whom she found an eyesore, deserved to die and give way? Song Chang'an needs a home. So he can come and seize my children's home as if by right? Xie Jingrang lowered his head. She did not mean to harm you. She is simply too dependent on me. This time, she surely knows she was wrong. Knowing she was wrong is useless. If she was wrong, then she should pay the price for it. If a mere "I know I was wrong" could lightly brush over murder and arson, then what need would there be for laws and rules in this world? Guards, take her away. After 20 strokes of the courtyard rod, throw her to the authorities. Xie Jingrang looked at me in a daze. Jingqiu, you were not like this before. You would draw your blade against the strong, yet still show human feeling, and you could not bear to be harsh to the weak. I looked at him, as cold as an icy deep pool. So, the blade I raise is aimed at your partiality, Lord Marquis. His pupils trembled, and all color drained from his face. I sat in the courtyard, amid Song Chang'an's cries and Xie Jingrang's deathly pallor. I watched helplessly as the guards brought their staffs down on Lin Qingru again, and again with all their strength. Her clothes were stained with blood, her face deathly pale. She fainted several times, only to wake again in pain. The bright red she spat out seeped into the cracks in the ground, spreading into a dark, sullen crimson. Xie Jingrang saw it all, his nails dug through his palms, but with the princess present, he did not dare snatch her away from under the rods. When the final blow fell, Lin Qingru coughed up a huge mouthful of blood with a puff, fainted, and lay motionless. I rose to my feet, and Ajing followed. As Xie Jingrang hurried to pick up Lin Qingru, she said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Who doesn't owe debts of gratitude?" Back when Mother was isolated and helpless, the general drew his blade to save her and took 3 wounds for it. Did Mother therefore see that the general was all alone, bring me and my younger brother to live in the general's residence, call him father, and let him join in the bustle too? The princess smiled and chimed in. Repaying kindness is nothing but a shameless excuse. Who in the capital does not know they are both utterly depraved? Xie Jingrang's body went rigid on the spot. It was not remorse. He simply hated me for hurting his pitiful reputation, and for ruining his grand image as a good father. When the news reached the palace, His Majesty cautioned me, "It's only a family matter. The Marquis needs to save face in court. The county lady should learn to smooth things over." I verbally agreed, but turned cold the moment I left. Then I would turn a family matter into affairs of state. After that day, the news that Lin Qingru had framed the county lady, been beaten until she was covered in blood, and thrown to the authorities spread like wildfire. The mother and son became like rats, scurrying across the street. Everyone sneered. Everyone despised them. Xie Jingrang could not bear Lin Qingru's tearful misery, and actually used the Song family's embezzlement of disaster relief silver as a pretext to heap merit upon Lin Qingru for putting righteousness before family. She was then granted the title of County Lady by His Majesty, putting her on equal footing with me. Within a few days, the tottering duke's residence openly acknowledged Lin Qingru as its adopted daughter, which was also part of the bargain Xie Jingrang and the Marquis's residence had struck. The evidence of the duke's residence forming cliques for private gain was thrown by him into the fire pit, in exchange for half a lifetime of wealth, honor, and security for Lin Qingru and her son. Ajing was deeply disappointed. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager said that people are always bound for life by the things they could not obtain in their youth. But father's rope is already tightening around his neck, so why does he still not know to let go? I smiled. You don't understand. Now that he has everything, he wants to pick up the dignity he lost back when he was scrambling with dogs for food. Lin Qingru worships him like a god, and Song Chang'an depends on him. In that admiration and dependence, he found the dignity to stand tall again.
There are countless men like that.
When poor and destitute, they can bow and scrape for wealth and keep lowering their bottom line again and again. But once they stand amid glory and riches, and after being fawned over for a few days as the powerful, they rack their brains trying to fish the moon out of the water to patch up that pitiful dignity. But dignity is something carved into the bones and cannot truly be lost. From the moment he went looking for it, it was lost forever. Ajing, from beginning to end, that father of yours who betrayed us was the real whetstone your mother prepared for you. I let you personally experience everything so that you would understand. His helplessness is a knife that kills. If I yield, that means death. Ajing. Even as women, no matter how hard it is, we must not give an inch. Ajing's pupils trembled. She looked down at the cold moonlight covering the ground and made no sound for a long time. Not until the oil lamp crackled did she raise her head and reply to me weakly, "I understand what mother means. An emperor protects his own. But there are always times when even he cannot protect them." Half a year later, at my daughter's birthday banquet, Lin Qingru followed the Duchess and came uninvited. According to Daeong custom, the most important part of the banquet is for the grandmother to personally put a longevity lock on a 10-year-old girl. It symbolizes a lifetime of peace, health, wealth, and lasting fortune. Xie Jingrong's mother died early, and my mother was long gone as well. The longevity lock in the storeroom was one I had prepared myself, but in full view of everyone. The longevity lock in the vermilion brocade box had been replaced with a blood-soaked, decapitated snake coiled inside it. While all the women in the courtyard screamed in fright, Lin Qingru's eyes reddened, and holding Song Chang'an, she apologized softly. The child was ignorant. When she got curious about the young lady's longevity lock, she picked up the wrong box. She didn't mean to use a decapitated snake to curse the young lady with a short life. The jade lock was shattered, so I replaced it with something even more valuable. No need to be polite. The Marquis has treated me well, so this is only my duty. The ladies nearby all turned pale. Losing a longevity lock is no good omen. The legitimate young lady of the minister's residence caught smallpox and died not long after losing her longevity lock. The capital is very particular about this. If good fortune is gone, both marriage prospects and one's future can be delayed. What was lost was not just the longevity lock, but also Madame's dignity and the young lady's blessings. The crowd began whispering among themselves, and when they looked at Ajing again, their expressions had changed. Lin Qingru suppressed the provocation and smugness in her eyes and said in an affected tone, "What should we do now? Surely the young lady's whole life won't be ruined by a single lock, will it? Who knows whether it was bad luck or just a coincidence?" She was waiting for me to fly into a rage and ruin my daughter's birthday banquet, but I merely gave a soft hum, and the hidden guard struck at once, as if receiving an order. With swift precision, one heavy blow landed hard in the hollow behind Lin Qingru's knee. She dropped to her knees with a thud at my feet, her forehead slamming into the ground, blood pouring out as she looked utterly bedraggled. "How dare you hit me? I'm a county princess." Smack. The Empress Dowager's personal matron raised her hand and slapped her across the mouth, then stepped on one of her bloody teeth and scolded, "You lowly wretch! How dare your trash demean something bestowed by Her Majesty? County princess? A title placed on a crude thing like you would be better fed to the dogs." Lin Qingru covered the corner of her bleeding mouth, her body tilting. "Something bestowed by the Empress Dowager?" I lightly tapped my teacup lid without even raising my head. "Hitting you was my mistake. I should have had you dragged out and killed. The lock was personally prepared by the Empress Dowager and bestowed into my hands by His Majesty. Ajing has no grandmother, so the Empress Dowager and the Emperor personally granted her this dignity and honor.
To touch it is a capital crime.
If a child doesn't understand, are the adults dead too?" Lin Qingru swayed, and everyone else's faces changed drastically as well.
Bang!
Ajing grabbed the teaware from the table and smashed a whole pot hard against Lin Qingru's forehead, still trying to use the child as a shield. "I already asked just now. It was you who lured away the guards and let Song Chang'an in. You tampered with my box and broke my lock. You said you would compensate me, yet you replaced it with a decapitated snake. Who are you trying to disgust? You damaged something bestowed by His Majesty. Beat her."
Bang!
A hidden guard staff came down on Lin Qingru's lower back. Sneaking into the Marquis Manor storeroom, beat her.
Bang!
Another blow landed on Lin Qingru's back, damaging the Marquis Manor's reputation, trampling on my future and marriage, beat her.
Bang!
Yet another blow landed on Lin Qingru's shoulder. She could no longer endure it. Clutching her belly, she curled up and screamed in collapse. "Stop, I am carrying the Marquis's child." The corners of my lips curved as I looked towards Xie Jingrang, who was hurrying over from behind the crowd. "Marquis, she says she is carrying your child." Lin Qingru fell to the ground, her plain white dress stained with crimson blood, pale and fragile. Brother Jingrang, with reddened eyes, the moment she saw Xie Jingrang, she cried out in grievance. Song Chang'an broke free of his restraints and pounced over, hugging Xie Jingrang's leg. "Daddy, they're going to beat my mother to death. You said you would protect us. Even my little brother is about to be beaten to death." Xie Jingrang reached to take Lin Qingru's hand, but froze stiffly in place. Lin Qingru saw it and burst into tears. "Chang'an is ignorant," and smashed Mrs. Jade. I was the one who did wrong. I should pay Madam with my life to beg forgiveness. She shot Song Chang'an a look, and Song Chang'an immediately knelt down. Daddy, I've never seen a longevity lock before. I only wanted to take a look. I didn't mean to break it. My hand slipped. Chang'an. Xie Jingrang cut him off. I know you didn't do it on purpose. Lin Qingru pressed a handkerchief to herself, and her sobbing weakened. But Xie Jingrang's gaze fell on Lin Qingru instead. But breaking an imperial gift and disrupting Aizheng's birthday banquet was your fault. Lin Qingru bit her lip, trembling as she cried. Yet Xie Jingrang raised his head and said to me word by word, "She is carrying my child. I admit the fault is mine. I beg, Madam, for the sake of the Xie family's offspring, to show mercy." He bent his waist very low, and the entire courtyard suddenly fell silent. One by one, they craned their necks to watch my expression. I gave a soft and when Xie Jingrang suddenly lifted his eyes, I asked, "You and I were joined by an imperial marriage decree. Openly betraying the marriage is a slap in the face to His Majesty and the royal family. Are you clear on that?" Xie Jingrang lowered his brows and replied softly to me, "It is not betrayal. It was a mistake made after drinking, and I will personally plead guilty to His Majesty. You know full well that protecting her today in front of all these witnesses means standing against your son and daughter. Do you still not regret it?" A trace of embarrassment surged onto his face. "Qingru has nothing left except me. I have no choice. Give their mother and son a proper status, for my sake if nothing else. Jealousy is unbecoming, Aizheng. You also have children. They need a future too."
Good.
Rather than protect his wife and children, the Marquis would rather slap the royal family's face and abandon wife and children just to protect his new love. Today, I and all the madams and young ladies in this courtyard have heard it. I nodded, and amid the crowd's whispers, I threw out the medical record in one motion. Only, when the Marquis was attacked in Ningzhou, he injured his body while clearing the remaining toxins and can no longer have children. So, where did Princess Qingru's child come from? And on what grounds should I let her enter the manor? Xie Jingrang was startled. Lin Qingru's crying stopped. Impossible. How could the Marquis be unable to have children? To slander me, you are deliberately smearing the Marquis in public. How vicious of you. I laughed. With one clap of my hands, the Song family's second son, Lin Qingru's younger brother-in-law, was dragged into the courtyard. He was tightly bound and gagged. But it was still not hard to see that face that looked strikingly like Song Chang'an's. The crowd gasped, Lin Qingru trembled, and Aizheng yanked the gag from the man's mouth. "The child's father is right here." Xie Jingrang swayed, and the Song family's second son lunged over viciously. Smack, smack, smack. He raised his hand and slapped Lin Qingru twice across the face. "It was this bitch who seduced me." She was dissatisfied that my elder brother had eyes only for the imperial examinations and his ambitions, so she seduced me and gave birth to Chang'an. Fearing their affair would be discovered by my elder brother, she took advantage of a spring outing and, when no one was looking, pushed him off the cliff. But the Song family would not allow me to carry on the family line for both branches. Unable to endure the loneliness of widowhood and coveting the wealth and status on the Marquis's person, she used Chang'an to threaten me, forcing me to find out the Marquis's whereabouts, then deliberately threw herself beneath the Marquis's horse's hooves to feign misery and beg for deliverance. She said that entering the capital was for Chang'an's future and riches, and told me to endure it. Who could have known that she would end up beaten by the county princess until her reputation was in tatters and she had nowhere to stand? So she simply went all the way. After borrowing my seed, she actually used the Song family accounts she forged to destroy my entire family. She even wanted to use the child in her womb to tightly seize the Marquis's heart, publicly grievously wound the county princess and the young lady, and steadily enter the Marquis's residence. She can forget it. My entire Song family has been ruined. This whorish bitch can forget about a good end too. The Song family's son kicked and struck her relentlessly. Blood poured from Lin Qingru's lower body, and she was barely breathing. Yet he still would not stop, pointing at her nose and cursing. She used the child in her belly to scheme against the Marquis's household, to reclaim the wealth and status of herself and the Lin family. The Duke's residents also knew about this matter. "You want me dead? Then you can all die." As soon as those words fell, everyone in the hall was horrified. Lin Qingru cried out heartbreakingly, "Fool, for the child's future, and yet you could not even endure a little physical suffering. You are not even worth one of my fingers. I must have been blind to choose you.
Bang.
Xie Jingrang viciously drove a kick into Lin Qingru's chest. Bitch. I used my future and merits to protect you, and what you gave me in return was a belly full of carefully laid schemes. Lin Qingru collapsed on the ground, coughing up blood, unable to speak for a long while. Then Song Chang'an burst into tears and threw himself forward, ramming his head viciously into Xie Jingrang's stomach. Bad man, who said you could touch my mother? Get away from me.
Bang.
Xie Jingrang brutally sent the 6-year-old child flying with a slap. His head struck the stone table, blood gushed out, and he immediately slid to the ground, vomiting blood mouthful after mouthful, before slowly going still. Lin Qingru went mad, screaming as she crawled over. Chang'an, my Chang'an, don't scare me. Xie Jingrang, what right do you have to hit my Chang'an? Do you really think you're some irresistible treasure? If Chang'an hadn't had no father, if the Song family hadn't been spurned by the emperor, and if I hadn't needed to borrow your influence to help him return to the capital to study and take the imperial examinations, would I have chosen someone as soft-eared and soft-mouthed as you? Useless thing, you couldn't protect me, couldn't protect Chang'an, and couldn't even win against the women in your own courtyard. Worthless. Smack. Xie Jingrang's slap made blood flow from Lin Qingru's ear. I really should have left you to rot to death in the Song family. Lin Qingru laughed. But weren't you still greedy for the gentle pleasures I gave you, unwilling to cast me aside? You would rather abandon your heavily pregnant wife than leave Ningzhou, staying there with me day after day in infatuated entanglement. You dare to do it, but not admit it. You couldn't protect me and still wanted to climb into my bed. You are not worth a single hair on Chang'an's father's head. The curses of the Song family son. Xie Jingrang's breakdown. Lin Qingru's cries. And the nursemaid's attempts to explain herself as she confessed and begged for mercy. The whole courtyard was in chaos, too horrible to look at. I let out a breath. Drag them out. Kill those who should be killed, and hand over to the authorities those who should be sent to the authorities. The Song family son's pupils trembled. Adultery was a grave crime punishable by drowning. He broke free from the servant's restraints, rushed over, yanked the hairpin from Lin Qingru's hair, and viciously drove it into her chest. If you want to get me killed, then I'll make sure you die too. You bitch with eyes only for wealth and power. You schemed over my elder brother's marriage, then schemed against me too, and for the sake of becoming the county princess, you joined Xie Jingrang in falsifying the accounts and destroyed my entire Song family. You deserve to die. You deserve to die. He stabbed hairpin after hairpin, leaving Lin Qingru covered in bloody holes. Squelch. In furious hatred, Xie Jingrang drove a knife straight through his chest. In the end, amid the blood all over the ground, the Song family's son and Lin Qingru both died with unwilling eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. Unfortunately, the words had already been spoken, heard firsthand by all the nobles and dignitaries in the capital. Using power for personal gain and scheming against the Song family, this was not a family matter, but a matter of court. Xie Jingrang could no longer save himself. I lowered my eyes. Drag them away. The banquet will continue. The longevity lock is in the princess's hands. Today, Your Highness will hang the lock on Aijing on behalf of Her Majesty the Empress Dowager to secure a lifetime of peace for her. Xie Jingrang trembled. The longevity lock is still here? You knew about this long ago too? Yes. I looked at him. Even if I were luring the snake out of its hole to strike at its vital point, I would never gamble my daughter's wealth, future, and marriage on whether that mother and son deserved to die. Aijing looked at him, as calm as a cold lake. Why is it that every single time you chose to stand against us? You always say you had no choice, but it was clearly we who did everything in our power just to protect ourselves. At my birthday banquet, you trampled on my dignity to elevate a concubine, acknowledged a venomous woman, and protected a bastard child. Are you my father or my sworn enemy? Those words struck Xie Jingrang's heart like a heavy blow. His chest ached, and he could hardly breathe. When he reached out in panic, Aijing had already walked to my side, leaving him only a cold, indifferent back. The people on the ground were dragged away, leaving behind a stretch of bright red blood. A splash of water, and in the blink of an eye it was spotless again. The princess hung the lock on Aijing, and she received everyone's congratulations. The birthday banquet that followed was whole and smooth. Only Xie Jingrang, scrutinized by everyone's strange looks, looked like a frostbitten eggplant, pale and bloodless, at a complete loss. That night, Xie Jingrang received the emperor's imperial edict. Besieged by court officials and battered by solid evidence until he was on the verge of collapse, the emperor had no choice but to protect him one last time, ordering him south to suppress bandits, to depart the next day. If he lived, the past would be forgiven. If he died, it would count as atonement with his life. He stood by my desk and spoke with difficulty. "I'm leaving." No one was willing to take on the bandit suppression mission, because going south was a near-certain death sentence.
I know.
"So you deliberately lured me step by step into your trap, then dealt me a fatal blow at Aijing's birthday banquet, making His Majesty thoroughly disgusted with me. Is that pushing me to my death?" I raised my eyes. "Wasn't it you who kept wavering and trying to smooth everything over? Wanting both the stability of mutual courtesy with me and unwilling to give up the tenderness of your white moonlight? Wasn't that you? Using my ties with Her Majesty the Empress Dowager to curry favor with the royal family, yet unable to bear others' words and demanding your self-respect. Wasn't that also you? When she entered the manor, Aijing's warning, my warning after the racecourse, and my final ultimatum by the fish pond, you never once faced or cherished any of them. Every betrayal was a clean, sharp knife, leaving deep gouges in your merit for supporting the emperor's rise. And every time, my yielding was like a mountain toppling with old favors, pressing down harder and harder on His Majesty's head. When your knife severed the protection gained from your merit in supporting the emperor's rise, my mountain pressed down on His Majesty's head so that he could not move. So in the end, the only one who could be abandoned was you." The oil lamp flickered, reflecting crimson in his eyes. "You are always too clear-headed. The Marquis's manor is our home, yet where feelings should have been used, you used instead the arts of power and scheming." I lowered my eyes and chuckled softly. "My Lord Marquis, you jest. If this were a home, why would I need to prove my innocence at every turn? If there were feelings, how could you have trampled on my dignity and carried on with her? To win completely is my ability, and also your incompetence, my Lord Marquis. You have nothing to feel wronged about." He parted his lips. "Jingqiu, I can't help you." I cut him off. "After all, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager has entered the Buddhist retreat and no longer concerns herself with court affairs. The mountains are high and the rivers long. Take care, my Lord Marquis." The last trace of hope in his eyes was completely extinguished. "I never meant for you to plead for me. I just don't understand why we, who once entrusted even our lives to each other, have ended up where we are today. Aijing hates me, and you resent me too. Even the others in the capital are secretly mocking me. How did I end up like this? Jingqiu, I regret it. I once had a harmonious marriage, both a son and a daughter, and was His Majesty's trusted confidant, respected by everyone in the capital. I shouldn't have clung to the past, I thought. You thought that without the Empress Dowager, I would endure it." I looked at him. But even before I entered the palace, I was never someone who could tolerate the slightest offense. Besides, you don't truly regret it either. You're only really afraid now that you have nothing left. Xie Jingrang tightened his jaw and lowered his head. "If I can fight my way back to the capital, I will spend the rest of my life making amends and proving myself. Unfortunately, there is no such if." Before leaving the capital, he went to knock on Aijing's door. "Your father was misled and bewitched, and in the end I was wrong. Aijing, your father apologizes to you." Aijing stood inside the doorway, distant yet polite. No one is willing to be a second choice, and not every prodigal son gets to turn back. You had your chances, but you never chose us, not even once. I wish father a smooth journey." All the words filling Xie Jingrang's stomach were blocked, unable to come out. He left heavy-hearted and utterly dejected. This time, all of us were starting over. On his way south, he suffered repeated heavy blows. In the end, a blood-stained list was sent back. Then he was shot off a cliff by a single arrow, leaving no body behind. It happened so quickly that even my deadsru didn't have time to act. And I clutched the evidence of the Duke's residence's crimes, holding the one Xie Jingrang traded his life for. The list. I entered the palace to receive the Commandery Princess title His Majesty granted to Aijing. It was compensation the Emperor gave me to keep the peace. Holding the rewards in my hands, I went into the Buddhist hall to see the Empress Dowager. There were no bandits in Jiangnan. They were the foster brothers who had raised Her Highness. The list was forged by the Empress Dowager herself. using the emperor's blade to cut down his own right-hand men. The Empress Dowager was bound to walk out of the Buddhist hall. Her Highness sat cross-legged on a prayer mat, lifting her phoenix eyes slightly, all sharpness laid bare. There is no medicine for regret in this world. What there is a Vajra blade hidden behind a bodhisattva's face. Unfortunately, both the Emperor and Marquis Xia made the wrong bet.